Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Trey, and I want to talk about the New 52 from DC comic books. And the reason why I want to talk about the New 52 from DC comic books is it goes into the pseudo failure of the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe. And what I need people to understand who aren't fans of the DCEU needs to understand something. The DCEU is founded on the New 52. So you know how everybody was hyping up the New 52 and how it did gangbusters or whatever and stuff like that. And you know how I always hear people like, yeah, well, the characters aren't acting like they would normally act though. But that's my point. I mean, that's the point of the New 52. They were acting like their New 52 counterparts. Most of them were. Yeah, they had a little bit of pre-New 52, but most of the characters were based off of their New 52 counterparts with a little bit of Dark Knight Returns. So, I mean, technically they were acting like their comic book counterparts. But the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to talk about the fact that this is one of the reasons why people love continuity. Because for a long time, Dan DiDio convinced WB that it was so hard for people to keep up with the DC universe or whatever, because after Crisis on Infinite Earths or whatever, it was just hard to get people into comic books or whatever and stuff like that. But listen to a podcast that Rob Liefeld said was talking about the whole thing. He was like, DC has always been number 2 when it came to comic book sales in the first place. And being that number 2 means that there's less pressure. You don't have to try to come up with gimmicks or whatever to try to keep the sales going or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that DC had like sale problems, you know, towards close to 2000, the late 2000s anyway. But it wasn't as bad, and it was still, you can still freshen up the thing. You didn't have to do an entire reboot for the continuity of the characters or whatever. But there's a reason why most people do not like the DCEU, is because most people do not like the New 52. And it's a correlation that I wish WB exec and the folks that work at DC in general would understand. Why people didn't like the movies. I don't want nobody to say that these movies are bad. Not all of them are bad. Not at all. Like, I think the worst movies in the DCEU is probably the Suicide Squad movie. I mean, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, and the theatrical release of Justice League and the theatrical cut of Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. But if you like literally Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Aquaman, and Shazam, you pretty much got solid movies. You do got solid movies though. You know, it's just kind of weird. Like, once you think about it, once you break down all of this stuff, you know, because I know how everybody want to be like, oh, it's Zack Snyder's fault. But you guys have to remember, WB came to him. He didn't really come to them about commissioning and stuff. Because if DC really wanted to do a good DC animated, universe, they would have went to their animators. They would have went to the people that was in charge of the DC animated universe that was on TV, that had the Bruce Timm style that people loved. All you had to do was just take what they did and correlate it to live action. You had a foundation right there, but they were so far stuck up their asses in trying to catch up to Marvel that they said, screw all of it. Screw that. We're going to get big Hollywood names. We're going to get big Hollywood directors and producers, and we're going to put them in there and stuff like that. And I know, to be honest, people love to throw Zack Snyder under the bus. Again, I don't care if you like him or not. I don't care about the Snyder fans, all that nonsense. This is not, that doesn't have anything to do, because everybody always like to try to be like, well, Zach, no, we're not talking about what he did or whatever. We're talking about the fact that DC and Warner Brothers hired this man and literally threw him under the bus and let him take the fall without really realizing, like, hey, damn, it's not Zack Snyder's fault, really. It's mostly fucking WB, because let's be honest, WB approved of it. WB the one who went and cut the movies and whatever. Because think about it. You're going to ask me to you're going to ask me after I do Man of Steel, and I was planning to do Man of Steel 2, which he said before that he was planning on doing a second Man of Steel movie, that DC was like, no, we need to do Batman vs Superman, and bring in Batman and also bring in Wonder Woman, but also set up Justice League. That's going to take more than a 2-hour movie to really set that up, since the universe really hasn't been set up yet. You know what I mean? So, you know, as much as I know people love to throw hate on that man, let's take the hate off of him a little bit and really put it on WB and DC themselves, because DC's the one who said, hey, let's restart the continuity of of the DC universe. Let's make it dark. Let's make it grittier. Let these characters be more realistic to the world, since, you know, DC characters has been gods among us or whatever, stuff like that. That was the whole point, because they're based off of mythology or whatever. They're not supposed to be on that human thing like Marvel characters are. That is the whole idea. That is what makes DC and Marvel different. And it's kind of funny when people want to compare them or whatever and stuff like that. And it was also kind of funny that people were complaining about the Marvel Cinematic Universe being all light and friendly or whatever and stuff like that. But then when DC didn't go that route that the MCU did, everybody was like, oh my God, it's dark, and I can't believe DC went this way with the characters. This isn't close to what they've been doing in the comic books. Yes, it has. Remember, Man of Steel came out after they had rebooted the continuity. So technically, yeah, they did. You know, the characters are dark, moody. The world is a little bit darker than, because that's the atmosphere that they wanted for the DC universe at the time. And it's always kind of weird when you have a lot of people always, you know, you complaining about the Marvel movies being all family friendly or whatever and stuff like that. And then when DC does something new, does something different, y'all all freak the hell out. But to be honest, DC is way more ahead than Marvel though, because they did take a chance. They did do something different than what a universe, of what Marvel was doing. Marvel had a whole standard of what the movies would look like. Each movie, you kind of can predict what will happen because of the formula that they set up. There is no shade going on right there with the MCU, because the MCU has done successful. They did a good 10-year job or whatever. But what I'm saying is, it's always funny when you kind of, if you really think about it and go back and how deep these DCEU movies were compared to the Marvel cinematic movies. Like, let's be honest, the only time it's really kind of been on a deep philosophical level is when we get to Infinity War and Endgame. Other than that, not really. The movies haven't been all that deep or whatever. They haven't really got you to think or whatever and jump like that. While, let's be honest, the MCU, they don't really touch the consequences of what happened or the aftermath of a lot of stuff that happened. But right off the back in the DCEU, there is aftermath. There is backlash within the world of DC and outside the world of DC. Does that make any kind of sense? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's look at it like that. Like, we're holding DC responsible for a lot of the stuff, while the characters are also being held responsible within the universe itself. But what I'm saying is that all this really proves is how DC was kind of dumb for rebooting their universe and going the dark route. What I'm not saying that I didn't approve of the darker toned. I'm not saying that. It could be just a smidge too much emo going on. It went too far, and that's not even just in the movies. That was in the comic books as well. That's why it was really hard to get through a lot of the DC New 52 comic books, because the characters were so dark, so gritty, and so out of character that you're just like, what the hell? That's why we have a Justice League where Cyborg is there instead of Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, even though that's what people wanted. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird. It's kind of weird that, we want to blame Zack Snyder for the failure, or whatever, and not really look at, hey, this is a WB and DC thing, and the reason why you didn't really feel like those characters were the characters is because you haven't been reading DC New 52 at the time of where the DC universe was at the time. See, Dan DiDio made a mistake where he wanted this reboot to happen without thinking about how most people who don't read comic books see these characters, especially after having an animated universe, and the promotional stuff from the animated universe and the promotional stuff from the comic books of pre-New 52 have been so permeated out into the world that's what people see. People didn't read the New 52 Superman like that. So it's weird that you thought that you could just reboot Superman like that in such a dark, gritty way that you thought people were going to accept it a little bit better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like Man of Steel. It has issues. Don't get me wrong. It does have issues. But I like Man of Steel. I do like Man of Steel. I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, I didn't enjoy it or whatever. What did I agree with the neck snap? No, but I listened to what Zach was saying. I listened to what everybody else was saying, how they explained why he had to. Even though it's kind of funny, some people forget that Superman has killed when desperate times come. But I'm just saying, without having the advanced technology that he has, you know what I'm saying? Or not knowing about Kryptonite or the Phantom Zone or whatever and stuff like that. It's kind of hard. Like, what did you expect him to do? Everybody keeps saying, find another way. I'm all ears. And that's not trying to be cynical or sarcastic. I really do want somebody to give me a better reason of where he could have did or whatever and stuff like that, because he tried getting Zod away from everything. And what did Zod do? Bring him back down. He said, you took everything away from me, and I'm going to take everything away from you, and I will not stop until I kill all of these humans. And he damn near could. With, you know what I'm saying? So it's always kind of funny. It's funny about those kind of comments. Like, are you really, like, thinking about, were you even watching the movie, or did you let your emotions rile you up to the point where you didn't watch that movie? That's all I'm saying. And it's no shade against nobody. I'm just saying that since nobody really read the New 52, you weren't prepared for the changes that Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman went through, because you already seen what they are from the DC animated universe or from the promotional stuff that DC has had before the New 52 that was still out at the time. So people already had what they wanted to see in those characters. And I really wish DC and WB and Dan DiDio had sat there and thought about that before they jumped the gun and was like, let's reboot the continuity of DC comic books, and let's also base our movies primarily off of the New 52. That's why Batman and Superman do not have their briefs. You know what I'm saying? That's why their costumes are a little bit more armored or detailed or whatever and stuff like that, because of stuff like the New 52. And I'm not saying the people who love the New 52 are wrong. I'm just saying that if I was in charge, I wouldn't have rebooted the continuity of the DC universe. I would definitely base the DC and DCEU off of the animated universe, because of the fact that the animated universe had a good foundation for the characters. It started off with Batman, then it worked its way to Superman, then it worked its way to Batman Beyond, Justice League, Static Shock, Zeta Project, Justice League Unlimited. You get what I'm saying? That's how you expand the world without trying to jump to the finish line. And it was so funny because WB and DC, you guys do realize we could have waited. There was no rush. Trust me, I'm telling you, there were no rush. And we would have loved to wait. We would have loved to wait for a proper DC Universe movie. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to jump the gun at all. You could have literally did the slow build. Trust me. Man of Steel 2, Wonder Woman, the Batman movie, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and then Justice League, and then you could have did solo movies or on however you wanted to do it. That would have been fine. That would have been fine. But you know, I just made this video because I want a lot of people to understand the reason why most of you guys are unpleased with the DCEU isn't really Zack Snyder. It's really because DC comic books rebooted the universe into the New 52. You're really upset at the New 52 because the characters were predominantly based around mostly the New 52, Dark Knight, and the Dark Knight Returns. So, you know, if you really want to be mad about something, that is where most of the inspiration came from. I'm not saying that it's not Zack Snyder's fault, but what I'm saying is trying to put all of it on him just doesn't work. It doesn't work in a narrative sense when you have to really think about it. Why did DC go this route? And again, most people aren't reading the comic book, so they're not aware that DC said, hey, screw the pre-New 52 universe, and let's reboot the universe with thanks to your favorite Flash that you guys like to try to promote and push, Barry Allen bitch ass. I'm just being honest, you know. So like I said, hey, the DCEU, the reason why it's a failure or whatever, or the reason why people hate the DC EU is really because of the New 52. And that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.